Welcome back. Today we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to go ahead and play around with basic encryption algorithm. So let's write one more program which will encrypt files using the primitive ROT13 algorithm. ROT13 stands for rotate 13 and is based on rotating the letters of English alphabet for 13 places. Since the alphabet has 26 letters and the rotation is circular, each letter is wrapped with the letter that is 13 places away. What do I mean by this? Well, if you have 26 letters, and let's say the 26th letter, set is rotated by 13 spaces. How would you go on from here? Well, it would just begin from 1, which is A, and then 2, which is B, and so on and so forth until you reach 13, and then that would be the rotation for a letter Z. So you would just, from 26, it would just reset and would go around. As I said, it's circular. Anyway, only the letters will be swapped. Other characters will remain unchanged. So this is a far more primitive encryption as opposed to the method of encryption that I've used in the keylogger. Actually, the keylogger is basically has a custom one-way encryption, has a custom synchronous encryption, basically because it uses the base64 algorithm, which performs the encoding process, and then we've obscured the encoding process. And in doing so, we've actually encrypted it. We are able to create our own keys, without which it shouldn't be possible to actually decode it. Anyway, let's go ahead and remove this for the time being. Completely delete it, as we will write something completely different. Again, we will play around with files, of course. And let's go ahead and create a function. As before, let's go ahead and prototype. it. The return type will be a string, and this will be rot13. Let's see the string s. Okay, so we've prototyped it there, and let's go ahead and create the body down below. Let's go ahead and implement it. Okay, there we go. So we will go ahead and create a for loop. So keep in mind, we're not using something that's built into C++. This is just the algorithm, so we need to write it. So we need to write this algorithm. I mean, yes, sure, it does exist out there. You can have a look at it on the net, etc. But you still need to implement the algorithm. You need to write it out. So we will create a for each loop. C will be a reference, meaning that changes applied to C are reflected in string S. Let me just show it to you. Perhaps it's going to be simpler like that. Char and %sign C colon S. Hopefully by now you know how the for each loop functions. And we're gonna need to, do we need it? Bracket? No, we don't actually. We can just write the if statement because there's only one if statement here. Come on. Yep, there we go. So for C, greater or equal to A, and so both of these conditions need to be met. And C is a lesser or equal to set. And then we need to use the one for capital letters as well. So we will create the OR statement here. C is greater or equal to A, because as C++ is extremely case sensitive. I keep saying extremely, there is no such thing. There's either case sensitive or not case sensitive. Less or equal to the capital set. Okay, there we go. So if C is a letter, we are checking. So what this entire line of code does is basically checking whether C is a letter or not. How is it doing that? Well, it's checking if the value of the char C is greater or equal to letter A, or it is lesser or equal to the letter Z. These letters, they have their ASCII representations, so that's how the greater or equal sign actually applies here. Or if it's greater or equal than capital A and it's lesser or equal to Z. And that is how this is evaluated. So if C is a letter, then perform a following action. Otherwise, don't. Okay. Ah, come on, code blocks. Why are you doing this to me? Have I been mean to you? Okay. So if... Why did I place these here? Okay. This has nothing to do with the code that I'm doing now. This is purely my way of writing things out. So if C is lesser than A plus 13, or if C is lesser than capital A plus 13, so look, this is saying if C is less than A plus 13 and if C is less than A plus 13. So if in the first half letters A, M, or AM, meaning capital, lowercase, C will equal C plus 13, add 13. We are not adding anything here. This is just an evaluation. Keep in mind. Else, C equals C minus 13. So we need to keep it. We need to keep the circular pattern. Otherwise, it's gonna go. Otherwise, it will go out of the scope that I talked about. So you remember when I said like 26, if you add to the 26th letter the 13 spaces, it's going to go outside of the scope, which is not something that we want to happen. So we want to be messing around within the scope, so we want to keep it circular. Anyway, let's go ahead and return S. And down below, we will actually need to implement this function and write a program that will actually prompt the user to input something, anything they want. And then when the input ends, the program will actually encrypt the input and save it to a file with a user-defined name. Now, just take a look at this algorithm here. This is basic. You can also basically find it on the net. It's not very difficult to find. Personally, it's not. I wouldn't use it really anywhere. However, I just wanted to show it to you because it's extremely simple. It's a lot simpler than base64 and the obscuring process through which we went in the keylogger section, so that you would be able to understand better how this process works before you moved on to anything more complex. So once again, just a recap of this function. So we pass a string. We pass some sort of a string, and then we loop that string to a for each loop here. This is loading things from S, and then it's verifying. Through the if statements, basically saying if C is greater or equal to A or lesser than or equal to Z, and so on. And the same applies for capital letters. So if it's checking, once it takes things from the string S, it's checking whether it has taken up a letter or not. If in case it has taken a letter, in case it is a letter, then it goes into a second if statement down below where it verifies whether C is lesser than A plus 13 or C is lesser than capital A plus 13, because we don't want to go outside the scope. And then it says, okay, C equals C plus 13, Else, if it's lesser than that, okay, then if it's greater than that, then go C minus 13. That's basically how it works, so that it wouldn't go out of bounds, so to say. Anyway, let's go ahead and remove this. Okay, leave it as it is, and go back to the main. Now, in the main, we're not going to do anything special here. It will be string, text, some string s, and file path. Okay, std, cout. So these are three strings up here. You have text, s, and file path. This shall be like this. Enter text. 1, 2, 3 in new line to end. So this will be the termination, the three minus signs. And that's gonna instruct your program, okay, I'm done, go ahead and encrypt it. End L. Okay. And down below, we need a loop as long as the input is okay, and during that process, keep storing the input using the getLine function. So as long as the input is valid, just go ahead and keep storing. Don't stop. This basically is an infinite loop until we actually terminated ourselves. While std, so to say, but take it with a grain of salt. GetLine std cin s. Okay, so some old news here. And now we're gonna need to type in an if statement. Probably didn't need these brackets for the while, but doesn't really matter. As you will see me often not using these because it's just one line below the loop, but I would really recommend that you almost always use them just to prevent errors, just to prevent future errors. So if s is not equal to 3 minus signs, if the user enters 3 minus signs in a new line, that means the end of the input. Okay, so type in, do the following. So if it is not equal to that, proceed. So just type in text plus equals s plus new line. So if not, then just add the input to the text. Basically, we want to add the input to the next line. Else, so if it is actually equal to 3 minus signs, then I want you to break. So we've learned the break statement before. I've talked about break before, and you know what it does. So if it is not equal to 3 minus signs, okay, fine. Every time the loop goes through, just go into the new line. Else, break. Just break out of it. Excellent. Once that is done, once we're done with that, we want the user to enter the name of the file, meaning the file name path. Std cout, so we want to have multiple inputs. Enter name of the file. Okay. And we're going to need a regular get line here. Std cin file path. So input the name of the file, and you would of course be given the opportunity to enter the file path as well through the name of the file. Std of stream file. Okay, we've done this in the previous tutorial. And file path. So we'll just put the string here as a variable. string variable here. So we're gonna open this file up for writing. Now, what do we need to do once we open up a file? Once we try to open up a file for writing, well, oh, by the way, if you specify, a user can also specify a path to which that particular user does not have the right to create the file in, and then you're gonna get an error. Or even worse, you're not going to get anything, and the program will just go through, and you will end up thinking that you did something, but in reality you did nothing because you were denied the proper permissions. That is why we're going to go ahead and play it safe. We're going to say if file. So if this happens, go ahead and create a printout for us. A bit of debugging here. Error. Cannot write to, and then print out the file, the user defined file path onto the screen so that we know where the user was trying to actually write it, and based upon that we can figure it out. Okay, so down. If this happens, return 1. Okay, so there's an error, so the main exited with a status which is not equal to 0. So we know that there is a problem, that the program ran unsuccessfully. Okay, file roth 13, and we're gonna type in text here. So this text is the variable which we have defined up here, and we are basically inserting into it. As you can see, text is basically the string s is being added to it, and plus the new line for every iteration. Oops, there we go. And that is going to get passed to the function roth13. Text string will be passed to it as a variable. So we're going to be calling the function and storing its results to a file. And then we're going to go ahead and close the file. File.close. As you can see, we're actually calling the function, and its return value is being stored into a file. So let's go ahead and build and run this program and see how it actually works out. Okay, a bit of an error here. Okay, so enter text. I don't know, tra-la-la-la, blah, 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 test, go, and 3 minus signs. And there we go. Immediately after I've typed in 3 minus signs, it says enter the name of the file. The name of the file shall be roth13, and it will be saved in the current folder. Press any key to continue. Okay, let's open it up. Okay, that's not where I want to be. Files, roth13. There you go. It has actually created it. If I open it up with Notepad, and there you see how this doesn't look like what we were writing. It's completely obscured. But the non-letter characters, the symbols that are not letters, they remain the same. They remain unaltered, unchanged, and untouched completely. So, thank you for following. I hope that you've enjoyed the course thus far, and let me know if you want me to cover some additional subjects and topics for you. I bid you all farewell.